welcome to the podcast In Defense of Freedom. This is a podcast by the California Constitutional Rights Foundation, which is dedicated to championing civil liberties and justice. Join us on our mission by supporting our work in this podcast at www.cacrf.org. Together, we can make a difference. Today, we're honored to have as our guest Marty Logan. Marty is one of the leaders in the United States in issues related to the southern border and the illegals crossing the border. So why don't we just get right into it and start talking about, your work? How did you get into this business of being focused on our southern border?
Well, it's 2020, right after the election. I watched things on the border starting to change a little bit. I'm in Arizona. I'm in Phoenix, so we're affected by illegal immigration in so many areas. So I was watching on the news, and I thought, I really want to get down there and see with my own eyes what's going on. And so we have a city here in Arizona called Sassabee. It's a little-known town that not many people know about. It's a border town. It's in between Nogales and Lukeville. A very small opening.
And where's that located precisely? When you look at the border in Arizona, where's Nogales located?
So Nogales is at the eastmost part of the border in Arizona.
Okay.
Very far east. And then you start getting into that whole Texas area. It's right. So Nogales, it goes Nogales, Sassabee, Lukeville, Yuma, San Diego.
Okay.
And so we know it's a very porous border. Right next to Sassabee is the Tonto National Indian Reservation. So the Tonto Reservation is right next. They touch Sassabee.
Okay.
Tonto, it's another nation. It's a whole nother world. It's a different nation. It's the Indian Reservation. And then you've got Lukeville and then San Diego.
Okay.
And so I went down there to kind of put eyes on it, and I was flabbergasted, to say the least. So I got down there, and there's not many people down there. One of the first things that I did was I wanted to let Border Patrol know who I am.
Okay.
I'm not there to pick up illegals along the wall that are coming across. So I always want to, whenever I do my missions down the border, the first thing that I do is I contact Border Patrol on the ground, and boots on the ground. I go up to them, I talk to them, I let them know who I am, show them what's in my car, so that their radars are down and they're not worried.
Right.
Obviously, when I go down there, I'm a big Second Amendment advocate, so I want to be safe. And we carry our weapons down there, our plate carriers and our plates and our radios and our night vision and all of our gear. And going down there, you want to be careful because Sassabee is run by the cartels. Yeah. Sassabee is a city that's owned by a gentleman that lives on the other side of the border. So Sassabee is owned by a Mexican gentleman. There's a little general store there, but we know they're compromised because it's right on the border. A lot of hunting goes down there. A lot of hunters down there. It's a beautiful area. Along the mountain range down there, the military does a lot of training down there because it kind of has the same topography as Afghanistan. So to say it's very rural, and there's a lot of roads coming from Mexico that end of the wall. The dozens of roads, dirt roads, come right up from Mexico to the wall, and then that same road picks up on America on the wall. So we know that there's cartel coming across all day and all night, dropping people off. It's a lot of drugs, a lot of humans, a lot of smuggling going down on there.
Okay.
And so we got down there, and that's kind of how this journey begins.
Okay. When you started, was there wall that had already been built there, or was it open?
So the wall was there, but all along the wall, I counted a lot of openings where it wasn't finished, but we also know when talking to Border Patrol and the pictures that I have and the video that I have to verify all this, the last administration was actually physically removing pieces of the wall. So they were A lot of holes in the wall all the way down.
Okay. Now,
Wide open.
your life hasn't always revolved around Second Amendment and the wall or the border. So what do you do in your real life?
I'm a real estate advisor. I help people build wealth through equity and buying and selling homes. I help a lot of people move here and get a second home. I work with a lot of investors. So I'm a full service advisor licensed here in Arizona.
So this is kind of your interest, maybe your hobby of going down and working along the wall.
Well, I don't know if it's a hobby. I was definitely my walls. I mean, my radar was up when I've seen all of the people coming across the border legally, and I've seen how it's affected us here in Arizona and around the country.
Okay.
So I was in corporate America as a motivational speaker for many years. I've traveled the world. I've lived in the Philippines. I lived in Canada, helping people be more effective.
Okay.
I was a member of the National Speakers Association for many years, but when 2020 came around, I wanted to see it myself. Somebody had to do something. So I went down with my team of friends, and we did our due diligence, and whether it was Sassabee. I've been to Yuma. I've embedded with the Yuma Border Patrol and the sheriff. If you have questions about what I experienced in Yuma, I have lots of information about the wide open border there that was in 2021 that I saw before Title 45. I think it was Title 45 expired. We knew when that expired, it was going to be a shit show, and it certainly has been.
Okay. Why don't you describe let's start back in 2020. What was the border like in 2020? You said that people were coming, but as we saw this last 4 years, I guess in 2020, it was pretty peaceful compared to what 2024 and 2023 were.
Well, I can talk about Sassabee. Sassabee is a border town that is run by the cartel. If you're a illegal immigrant and you're coming across to seek asylum,
yes,
you don't come to Sassabee. You come through different ports of entry. You'll come through Yuma. You come through parts of Texas. So we knew from the research we did, if you're in Sassabee and you're coming across and you don't want to get caught, you're probably a bad guy. And so at the time that when I got down there, Border Patrol was open to talking with us. They would take our information that we would give them, because we're on the border at 1 a.m. It's dark. There's nobody down there. The Border Patrol, when I got there, the new administration started taking over. There really is no Border Patrol at night. They don't patrol at night. It's wide open. And you got to remember, the Border Patrol that I met, they're great people, but they have a family to get home to.
Okay.
They got children. They got wives. And they're not going to engage because they want to get home at night. And so they just did their job. They were definitely told to stand down. When the new administration started coming in and removing parts of the wall, their hands were tied.
Okay.
And so we knew that we wanted to get down. So we camped down there. We were able to hide down there where the cartel can't see you. You got to remember, it's a game of cat and mouse down there with the cartel. They're very good with technology. They have millions of dollars invested on their side of the wall. They have listening devices. So if I'm down there with my team, or if there's Border Patrol, they can hear you. They know where you're at.
Okay.
They can see you. They know where you're at from miles and miles and miles away. So, we would go down there and hide out in different spots that they wouldn't expect us. And the Border Patrol doesn't do, or Homeland Security. No, there was nothing going on down there. When I was there, it was wide open. So we were able to spot spotters. And for your listeners that don't know what a spotter is there's parts of the wall down there, way down the road, where there is no Border Patrol. And I've told you about these openings in the wall where the illegals will drive up on the road right to the wall on the Mexico side. They'll walk through the gate or the wall, and then they'll be picked up by a vehicle and they'll be taken into the United States. So that was happening everywhere. So we were able to see that. We were able to document it in Sassabee. We were able to contact Border Patrol and let them know who we see, and they would pick them up. But in Yuma, guys, for your listeners, the people that are coming through Yuma were coming from around the world. I met people from Haiti, Afghanistan, Mexico. I met people from Russia. I was able to embed with Border Patrol. Back then, Border Patrol was frustrated. Not that we haven't been recently in the recent years, but they were cool enough to let me, by myself, embed with them. They gave me a tour. They showed me around. And then I'd go back at night, kind of hide out and watch and let them know when I see something. I was able to personally encounter 8 Russians that came across. They're all military-age fighting men. What I saw were no wives, no daughters, no family members, no kids. When I was in Sassabee, I saw men. When I was in Yuma, the getaways that don't want to get caught,
Right.
they're all men. And I saw cartel coming through. How do I know there were cartel coming through? Because cartels have certain tattoos on certain parts of their area that lets you know they are cartel, whether it's Sinaloa cartel or wherever they may be. So I was able to experience the huge opening in the wall down there at one of the dams down there on the border of Yuma and California. It's right. There's a big dam down there, and there's a big wall. There's a big opening down there to drive trucks through it.
So let's go back to the cartel town,
Sassabee.
So what kind of people are coming across in Sassabee? I mean, you're describing them as cartel. Are they coming in armed? Is it caravans of individuals? I take it they're men. Could you tell whether they were carrying drugs in, or what was it that they were doing there?
So along the border down there, and just north of Sassabee, you're heading up towards 3 Points. It's another city.
Okay.
And then you've got Tucson is up there as well. So I'm south of Tucson, an hour and a half south of Tucson.
Okay.
There's a lot of ranchers up there that have game cameras on their property. I was able to interview and spend some time with. And these farmers that live up there showed me multiple videos of young men carrying very large backpacks. And as we know, what our research tells us, those are called mules. Mules are young men that are strong enough to carry a backpack filled with fentanyl, cocaine, and crystal methane. They're able to carry this backpack 10, 20 miles across the desert when it's 100 degrees. These are typically men that are younger, anywhere between 17 and 19 years of age. And with that group, you'll have people that are older that they're not they're more mature. They're maybe not in great shape like these young studs that are coming through.
Sure.
They carry the water and the food and the clothing. And they wear carpet shoes. Carpet shoes are shoes that are very large that look like slippers made of carpet.
Okay.
And carpet shoes let you travel across the border and on private property without leaving footprints. So you're untrackable. So there's a lot of these farmers and ranchers were also trackers and hunters. They were able to track people on their property.
Okay.
What was very interesting is they wear carpet shoes, and they will go ahead, and their spotters will see somebody up there, and they'll get on the radios and say, "Hey guys, don't go that way. Border Patrol's over there. Or there's some people over there. Go this way. There's nobody over there. Go that way." Those are spotters.
Okay.
They work for the cartel. I was able to find spotters. We caught some of them. You remember Sassabee, if you go 10 miles east towards Nogales, you hit the Patagonia Mountains. It's the mountain range I talked about.
Sure.
It's effervescent of Afghanistan. Well, there is no wall there. It doesn't exist.
Okay. Is that by
So when you go
design?
down,
Is that
you
by
can't- you
design
can't-
or?
you can't build a wall over a mountain range.
Okay.
Cliffs and rock. It's just not going to happen. It's very hard to traverse. That's why people that are crossing the border down in Sassabee, there are no cities out there. So when you cross the border into America, there's nobody to help you. There's no stores, there are no restaurants, there are no houses. It's the desert.
Okay.
So that's why the cartel comes across, and they have hidden trucks and cars that have been left there. And they hide the keys in the car so these cartel get across. But the spotters are down there. And remember, there is no cell phone service. because you're 10 miles outside of Sassabee in the middle of a mountain range heading over to Nogales.
Okay.
No, there is no phones. It's the Wild West. It's very dangerous. There is no border patrol down there because they're not going to engage because they don't want to die. They can't communicate with people because there is no cell phone service down there. So it's the Wild West. It's wide open. And so, I caught spotters down there. We were able to turn them over to the Border Patrol. They cross all hours of the night. Typically, they want to go at night under cover of darkness. But when it's really hot out, man, it's dangerous. So if you're a cartel and you're going to come across at about 5 a.m. when it's cooler, just before the sun comes up. And remember, the rotation of Border Patrol. You know when the shift ends and another shift comes on. So when the 7 a.m. shift leaves and goes home and the new shift comes on, there's a lull in activity. So it's a cat and mouse game. They would see us. They wouldn't go through here today. They'd go through tomorrow when we weren't there. They have listening devices, like I said. They have high-powered binoculars. We did see some of the cartel were armed with AK-47s. But they didn't want to engage with anybody at the time. Because if you come across and you get caught with drugs and you engage and the Border Patrol is going to get involved and the media is going to come, that's a light shined on them they don't want to see.
Okay.
And so they always wanted to keep things under the radar, and they always wanted to be kind of away from the media or anything like that. No, I have coverage from Yuma that it's been on YouTube. I shared it when I had the hundreds of people coming across the border, all migrants, a lot of families, a lot of men, when they were being put on the buses. I filmed thousands of people walking across the open border and getting on buses, and they all now live in the United States, and they were not vetted when I saw them. And Sheriff and the Border Patrol told me that they weren't being vetted.
Sure. So there's a significant difference then between the people coming across in the small town versus the Yuma area.
Yes.
Those are where
Absolutely.
the families are coming. Now, during the course of the
Families.
yeah,
Families.
right.
Yeah.
But during the course of the Biden administration, it always appeared, or at least it was being reported, that the drugs were coming across with the families. Now, that apparently is not true, correct? That the families are there, or the women and children are there to kind of disrupt the border enforcement. Is that correct?
Well, so down in Sassabee, yes, that's true. So you have an opening in the border here and an opening in the border here. They'll send a family through on this opening of the border, and 500 yards down the road or a half a mile down the road, while the family's coming across and Border Patrol is taking care of them and receiving them and processing them. While the family is here, the cartel will send another team of drug runners through here because Border Patrol can't be in two places at once. So absolutely. I mean, I was one of the contributors on a movie called Line in the Sand by James O'Keefe and OMG. We all know James O'Keefe, and he's from Project Veritas, and we have documented through our films over there. Absolutely. They'll send a family through the hole here, a half a mile up here. They'll send the drugs through here.
Okay. So, you didn't go down there, I take it, by yourself. So what kind of team would you have to take to provide enough security so that you wouldn't get shot by the cartel?
Highly trained individuals.
And
Patriots.
where'd you find them, and what was the training?
I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable chatting about that, but just good patriots.
Okay. And so was your focus just on, one little sector, or did you send teams down to cover multiple different areas at the same time?
Well, in Sassabee, it's remember, on the east side of Sassabee is the Patagonia Mountains. You drive 15 miles westbound, you get to Sassabee.
Okay.
And then you keep going westbound, like you're going to go to Lukeville, Arizona, or head on down to Yuma, Arizona, and then San Diego. You have the Indian Reservation. And so when you're going up the Indian reservation, I mean, so we know that the Indian reservation has been compromised because they have a relationship with the cartel. Because remember, when you get to the Indian reservation on the other side, there is no wall. It doesn't exist. Why? Well, if you do your research, you know it was a very big legal dispute between the Indian reservation and the U.S. government. It's their property. They said, we don't want a wall on our property. So there is no wall on their property.
Okay.
It's wide open. So if you're a cartel and you want to get your drugs across, a pretty good way to get across is meet up with people on the Indian reservation. We know that people that live on the res, they don't have a lot of money.
Okay.
I mean, is it realistic for me to say being on a Indian reservation is like living in a third world country? Absolutely. If anybody lived here in Arizona that's listening to this right now, there's plenty of reservations we have that don't have running water. They don't have cell phone towers. Some don't even have electricity. I've been to some of them before. If you're up between Globe, Arizona, if you're in Globe, Arizona, and between Globe and Show Low, Arizona, you've got some third world countries up there. So in Tonto Odom Indian Reservation between Sassabee and Lukeville, Arizona, is the res. Okay. And so we know we there is no wall there, and we would see where the cartel is coming through onto the Indian reservation, because the Indian reservation, I'm not going to say is sold out, but they're compromised. And once you're in bed with the cartel, you don't get out.
Okay.
You don't get out alive. You don't get out alive. So we would see spotters spotting us. Yeah. We got binoculars on them, and they got binoculars on us. Cat and mouse.
So kind of describe the difference in the type of people coming across, in different locations on the wall. Some of the things that you've seen over the past 4 years that were particularly either shocking or interesting to you.
Los Obregones. I might be saying that incorrectly. Los Obregones. That is the dam. It's a physical dam.
Okay.
They have the water dammed up. The water comes down from California into Arizona, into Mexico. It's a beautiful water inlet. It's gorgeous. Going through the desert in California. Down there, I saw people coming across the border with very nice shoes on, very nice clothes, very well dressed, new purses, new clothes. I mean, I saw people that had tennis shoes that didn't even have any scuff marks on them. They were beautiful. And the research that I did and seeing what I could with my own eyes and talking to Border Patrols, we know that these people were flying in from around the world into Mexico City and taking a taxi cab. And you take the taxi cab up to the border and you get out and you walk across the border into America. So for me, that was very interesting to see that. I talked to people that were so excited to get here, and they knew they were breaking the law. And they knew that when they were coming across the border, it was illegal. But there was hundreds of them. They were coming in droves.
Thank you for watching the In Defense of Freedom podcast. If you believe in the mission of defending constitutional rights and protecting individual freedoms here in California and across the country, we ask for your support. The California Constitutional Rights Foundation is doing vital work, but they can't do it alone. Your donation helps fund critical legal battles, educational programs, and advocacy efforts to preserve the liberties that matter to us all. Please consider making a contribution today by visiting cacrf.org. Every dollar makes a difference, and together we can stand strong in defense of freedom.
This is a group of migrants right there. They're crossing over the water. That's from the Mexican side. They're crossing over under the water, under the fence, and over the water, and that's the reservation. That's Border Patrol right there. Bunch of migrants just crossed right there. Looks like that helicopter's gonna go make contact. He's landing, I believe. It's on the reservation over there. It's Friday morning, 8 a.m. It's quite nice out here, actually. That's the river. That's the Mexican side over there.
on that side of the river. But that's where they crossed right there. I just watched five mega migrants come down into the water and cross over there around that wall there.
And they would get there, and in America and Border Patrol had all these water stations and porta potties, trash cans, and these hundreds of people would come over at all hours of the day, usually early in the morning. I was there in April, and it starts getting hot, and so they were smart. They come early in the morning when it's cooler out, and they come across. That was great. You get your water. You put all your trash in there, but it was pretty disgusting. Just the trash everywhere, and there was hundreds of people, and Border Patrol was overwhelmed. People were in lines.
Okay.
I remember walking the lines, just lining the border wall, half a mile, a quarter mile of people waiting to get processed. And I can remember the buses, the big school buses, the big white buses. They were white.
Okay.
Pulling up. It was kind of like going to the Waste Management Phoenix Open this weekend. So our WMPO golf tournament, we have 1 million people here, and you have these buses that drop people off in the parking lot and pick them up all day long. It was like that. Then the border of Yuma is picking them up all day long and bringing them in and shipping them into the country. For me, that was crazy.
Where were they taking them?
They would take them into the United States. Now they all live here now.
Right. But I mean, they're picking them up at the border. I mean, obviously they didn't drive them to Denver, but it seems like a lot of people ended up in Denver. So were there transit points that people were going to? Did you observe those?
So there are staging areas where these buses stage and house these people. Now we know that the NGOs are all over Arizona. I don't know about California, but we have NGOs. We have housing units here that are housing illegal aliens. Here in Phoenix, whether it's churches or whether it's different schooling areas, whether it's Catholic charities, whether it's places out in Tucson, they're everywhere. So they would get staged, and from there they would get taken, all over the country. They're in every state out there.
Now, obviously in these...
New York.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in New York. We know they're in Chicago. Yeah, of course, you got Venezuelan gangs are in Colorado. But hey, the Venezuelan gangs are here in Arizona as well.
Sure.
They've been cited. I've talked to a police officer a few months ago. He said they are here. They have cited them.
Okay. So did you have opportunities to talk to, local businesses and others about the impact of illegals coming across the border and how it was affecting them?
Look, our downtown Phoenix has been overrun by homeless people. Fortunately, our local business owners about 1.5 years ago sued the city of Phoenix and won. And so the city of Phoenix had to clean up our downtown area. This is before our new mayor is in. So they've cleaned up our downtown area. It looks great. It's gotten a lot better. It's hurt our businesses down here because it was running some of the business. Some people were scared to be in that area. They were just frightened. So his business was definitely being affected. So the gentleman that I talked to, that was one of the plaintiffs of the lawsuit, but things are getting better in our downtown Phoenix area.
So have you been down to the border recently since Trump took over?
I have not.
Okay. So did you notice any improvement at the border, or was it constantly disruptive and, out of control?
I can tell you, I was at the border a year ago down in Lukeville, Arizona. Down the road a little bit, and I came across the staging area. What happens is when these illegal aliens come across the border, they have their cell phones, right? Mm-hmm. And your cell phone's going to run out of power. So they have these little portable chargeable batteries. You've seen them before, right?
Right.
The battery pack. And you plug it in at home, it charges up, and then you connect it to your phone, and then when you're walking across the border, you can still call people because you have your phone. Are you with me?
Yes.
Well, the bus drivers and the American government or the NGOs does not want these little mini battery packs on the buses because they can explode.
Okay.
We've read about them exploding. We all know about the battery packs that explode and catch fire. And so before you load a bus to come and live in the United States as a legal alien, you cannot leave your you cannot take your battery pack with you on the bus because it's a fire hazard.
Okay.
Last year, I ran across a staging area where they bring them all in and they put them on the bus. They have these big wood tables out there. And so what the illegals have to do is, before to get on the bus, they have to dispose of their battery pack. I found thousands and thousands and thousands of battery packs strewn across the ground in piles in the desert everywhere. And this was recent. These were recent battery packs because they still had charges on them. I took a couple of them, turned them on, they worked. So as of a year ago, they were still bringing them in by the thousands across the border down there in Lukeville. Lukeville's a different area. I haven't spent much time down in Lukeville. Now,
Okay.
Lukeville on the other side is Sonoita and then Rocky Point
So
or Port of Mexico.
So you've described so far that Trump had built border wall in that sector.
Correct.
Then when Biden came in, they started dismantling it. Was that by design? Was Border Patrol taking sections of the wall out? Or how did the holes that you've described open up in the border wall?
Look, I didn't see it myself with my own two eyes. I can tell you all the equipment that I saw parked down there. They had a bunch of equipment down there next to the border wall along the road in the desert. And I can tell you what I saw, and that was a lot of places where the steel wall, very large piece of steel wall, had been removed out and was over on the ground.
Okay.
I did not, and they did tell me that would happen after the new administration. Our past administration had taken office.
So did besides the Border Patrol and or contractors that had been hired by them, did the cartels also dismantle parts of the wall, or was it all being done by our people?
Good question. Down there on the very far east end, when you leave Sassabee and you're heading to Nogales, and then it ends there, it ends at the wall down there. It ends at the mountains, the Patagonia Mountains, just mountains going up, and there is no wall. There was a lot of pieces of the wall that were missing that were down there that have been taken out. Also, some of the workers that were down there were working on the wall. It was very interesting. Not many of them spoke English. All of the contractors that I met down there working on the wall were all Mexican or Spanish, and they didn't really speak English. So that was weird for me. Again, it was pretty sketchy down there because we know you have all these roads that lead right up to the wall on the Mexico side, and then there's an opening. They drive their car across or walk across, and then they get in another vehicle. So I don't know who took it down because I didn't actually see it with my own eyes.
Okay.
But, I have common sense.
So, obviously building the wall is the most effective thing, but, what other changes either did you recommend to people or did you hear being recommended to improve security along that wall?
Look, the Border Patrol that I talked to were frustrated. I came down and let them know we support you. I know you're having a rough time right now. I know this is frustrating. And I'm not media. And a lot of times I was down there by myself. They're like, who are you? What are you doing down there? This is dangerous and you got to be careful. And I was always carrying. But most of the time when I was in Yuma, I was all by myself. I tried to get this out to the world. I sounded the alarm. I put it on my YouTube channel, but nobody cared. At least not the mainstream media. Let me rephrase that. The mainstream media that we all know didn't care. When my mom died, my mom took the vaccine and dropped dead 12 hours later, and I have a death certificate that says cause of death, COVID-19 vaccination. I reached out to the media, the big ones, all of them. Fox News didn't want to hear what I had to say. CNN, and none of them wanted to.
Yeah.
When I sounded the alarm regarding the wall, again, nobody wanted to pay attention.
Okay.
We know big media certainly didn't.
Right. Obviously there were people paying attention because it became the number one issue in the presidential campaign by the president. So what kinds of things did you do to help draw attention to this? I understand that you made documentaries and took a lot of video. tell me about your YouTube channel and how you were publicizing all this.
Well, I mean, information is power. Knowledge is power. I mean, I'm just a regular guy like everybody else, just helping people buy and sell houses here in Arizona. And a lot of word of mouth, a lot of getting stuff out. It's grassroots, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a form. My friend Steve Colby helped me put together the idea. He edited it for me, and I put it out on YouTube and did the best we could. You know, I want to do all I can. I want to at least speak up and do what I can, right? It's better than nothing.
Sure. Now,
Well, that'll lead to here today, where I'm at least I'm here with your listeners, and if your listeners are listening, they have a chance to hear what was happening on ground zero.
okay. So you haven't gone down to see if there's any improvement along the wall since January 20th, at least at this point.
Correct. Not at this point.
I'm sure you're going to be down there, to document the improvements because, if we listen to, the news and what the administration's saying, border crossings have just essentially collapsed. But that doesn't mean that the cartels aren't still moving product and people. So where do you think the biggest improvement would have been since January 20th in terms of stopping border crossings? And do you think that there's been much improvement on the reservation or along that section that was essentially lawless for 4 years? Do you think there's any improvement at this point?
There'll be no improvement on the Indian reservation. It's a separate company. It's a separate country. They're within their rights at this point not to put a wall on their property. And so it ain't going to be there. It's
Okay.
pretty gnarly to get across over there. It's very rocky. You really can't cross in that area. It's tough. Families aren't coming across. Cartels
Okay.
come. So are we going to see an improvement on the Indian reservation? Probably not.
So-
are they? Go ahead, Stephen. Go ahead.
So do these reservations go across the border into Mexico? Is it a multi-country jurisdiction, or how
Good
do these
question.
reservations, how are they set up?
I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you if you want to look it up and Google it. It's really easy to find. It's the Totem Reservation in between Lukeville, and it's an Indian reservation on the side of the United States of America. Does that Indian reservation run into Mexico? Most likely not. It stops at the wall, or the lack of it. It stops at the border. There is no wall there. It stops at the border. So do
Okay.
I see any improvement happening over there? I don't. I do not.
So if they can't control the Indian reservation, how are they ever going to be able to control illegal crossings in those particular areas? Why wouldn't the cartel just move there and begin to bring their drugs and smuggle their people across through the reservation?
It's a great question. I wish I had the answer to that one.
Have you been able to get onto the reservation to be able to observe what's going on there?
But that is a no.
Okay. Is that because the reservation prohibits people from entering, or is it just that there were so many other places to go observe that you didn't really see it worthwhile trying to get onto the reservation?
You can't bring weapons on the reservation. That means I'm not protected.
Okay.
And in an area that is overrun by cartel, they don't want us there.
Okay.
And so there's no reason for me to go there because I can't. It's dangerous.
Okay. Does Border Patrol, are they able to cross it through that? Do they cover the reservation?
I don't know the answer to that. From what I saw, the answer is no. But I'm not the expert on that.
Okay. So you're in the real estate business in Arizona. How has the illegal crossings impacted your business?
It hasn't really impacted my business. I helped somebody last month get a new build. We got them a 4.99 interest rate over the next 30 years, which is pretty good.
Okay.
I just have a new listing going live up in North Scottsdale. It's a new custom new build, 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath on a 77,000 square foot lot. Are we seeing any problems with people not showing up to work? That might be illegal aliens that are framing houses or they're doing plumbing. I haven't seen that yet. This is all still happening so quickly. So for me personally, my business, that hasn't affected real estate at all.
Okay.
I'm busy. Everything's great. My clients, I just helped somebody buy a second home here up in Gold Canyon. We're doing well.
Okay. So your business is primarily in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area. How about, your colleagues in the Yuma area? They feeling the impacts?
Couldn't tell you that one. I mean, I work all of Maricopa County, every city here, including Prescott, Arizona. We're not seeing any effects from any illegal immigration that I know of. Again, the only thing I might think we might see is a slowdown in potentially framing in jobs here that may have more illegal immigrants in here that are scared of showing up to work because they're worried about being deported. But I haven't seen that yet.
So you mentioned that the gangs are beginning to move into the Phoenix area. In the Denver area, Aurora, we heard all of the news about the gangs coming in and taking over apartment complexes and basically terrorizing the population. Have you heard the same types of things happening in
I have not. Not that I know of.
Okay. And your law enforcement friends haven't indicated that the gangs are present, but they haven't discussed how organized they are, or is it just a matter that they're gang members and they know it?
Look, right now, what they're looking at as of today, as of last week, my friends that are Phoenix PD are worried about these protesters that are protesting illegal immigration in our cities and our streets, and they're causing property damage. Phoenix Police Department didn't see this coming. Now, they're not acting with ICE because our mayor has already openly said this is a sanctuary city and she will not participate in helping ICE with any deportations. So, but we had some gnarly stuff last week. We had people that were here that were blocking the streets off in downtown, impeding traffic so people couldn't get to work or get home or get to the hospital. If they're having a baby or if there's an emergency, they couldn't get to the hospital. They were blocking the streets and causing property damage.
Okay.
That's on our radar right now. And the Phoenix Police Department's radar is to keep everybody safe from people that are crying because they came here illegally and have had 30 years here. They've been living here for 30 years or 20 years or 15 years, and they're crying because they didn't take the time to get things right and they're being sent home. That's what's on the radar right now.
Okay. Now, the Trump administration and Homeland Security Border Patrol are indicating that they're only picking up the worst of the worst, the criminals. Do you find that to be true?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know what the right thing. I mean, I'm up here in Scottsdale selling, doing real estate. I was at the Phoenix Open all this last week and the Bird's Nest. I'm recovering from that. I think my liver needs a break. Business has been good. We're not seeing a lot up here in Scottsdale as far as ICE. I do have friends clients of mine that are in Oregon that run a very successful business, and they have cooks that are Spanish, and the cooks are worried about being sent back to Mexico as well. And as far as what I'm finding out, a lot of these restaurants is a lot of the cooks are Spanish. And so they're worried about their business not being able to stay open because if they do raids on these people that have jobs and that are working, it's going to hurt their business. So I don't know. I haven't seen any arrests myself that are happening. I don't know who's being arrested. The best place that I'm watching all this stuff is not on mainstream media. I just get my information elsewhere, like people like you that are out doing these podcasts that are really, Stephen, you're pulling back the layers of the onion. You're going deep with people that have boots on the ground, that have been there and seen things with their own eyes. So great job.
Thank you. So why don't we move on to some other topics that are kind of interesting to talk about, such as what do you think of the last 3 weeks of the brand new administration? Give me your opinion on how you see things settling out.
For 4 years, I watched the Biden administration desecrate us, trample on some of our First and Second Amendment rights. I mentioned earlier that my mother took the Moderna shot. She dropped dead 12 hours later. I'm the only guy in the world that has a death certificate that says cause of death, COVID-19 vaccination. I'm the guy that has that death certificate. I had to get an attorney. I had to fight for this. They would not do an autopsy. I had to pay for my own. I was shadow banned when I told the truth on Facebook, on Instagram, and TikTok. I watched my friends' First Amendment rights get trampled. I watched Second Amendment rights being infringed. I've watched illegal immigration explode. I've been there. We've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
So did I vote for this current administration? Absolutely. Have I been excited about what's been happening? Is he doing what he ran on? Absolutely. I just want Trump to obviously take the high road. He doesn't need his inflammatory rhetoric. It's not needed. I want him to stay the course and not give anybody on the left a reason to say that he has mean tweets. I mean, I know that we're going to be in court. I know that the left tried to burn the country down before they left. I could go into all the different reasons, but am I excited? Do I think the country is on the right track? Yes. I read numbers today that his ratings are the highest they've ever been. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a podcast the other day talking about all the things that the president was doing, all the executive orders, and, you know, some of the executive orders that you thought would never have to be written to preserve the First Amendment, to order the Justice Department to step in and protect Second Amendment rights. I mean, we've got a Constitution that's been written for 200 years, and now we have to have a president by executive order say, enforce the Constitution. It's been amazing what Trump has done. 8 years ago, when I looked at him, you know, politicians come and go. They never do what they say. When he got elected in 2016 and took office, you know, my attitude was, it's just another politician. Not with Donald Trump. Trump says, this is what I'm going to do, and then he does it. And no one else in this country, no other politician has the courage to stand up and say, here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I have done. And you look at him, you know that the 50 or 55 executive orders that he's issued, that he's going out to do each and everything he said he would do during the campaign, and he's going to go out and accomplish those goals. And it's been amazing just to watch it. And then the bankrupt attitude and the bankruptcy of the Biden administration was also amazing. And I guess maybe that's what has caused the American electorate to say, okay, we've had enough. And to have Trump at 52, 53% approval when he couldn't hit 50% in his first term is, you know, amazing.
I hope Americans are waking up. I've never seen our country so divided. Family members aren't talking to family members because they voted for somebody that they don't agree with. We know it's a battle between good and evil. I believe if you look at Scripture, we know that Scripture supports world leaders that are voted in at the time. And so I just hope that Trump was able to stay safe and protected. Prayed that the Holy Spirit would surround his security detail with wisdom and keeping their eyes open and keeping their head on a swivel. We have a long ways to go. We're going to be in court. Trump's already in court this week. They're going to fight tooth and nail, but the USA aid I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was this bad. I hope that, I would, but I didn't. Look, I'm naive sometimes in the fact that I didn't know the child trafficking was as bad. The child trafficking was as bad as it is. When I watched Lion in the Sand, I cried. I didn't know the money that's been going to these third world countries and for what it's been going for. It's pretty bad. It's pretty evil, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, these nonprofits that you were describing, he's gutting the funding for them. They are apoplectic right now because he's going to win that fight in the courts. You know, he's the executive. He gets to make the decisions as to how money gets spent. And in so many instances, Congress makes these sweeping generalizations that they will pass out grants. Well, that doesn't mean they have to pass them out to every, two-bit NGO out there. And the Biden administration made sure that it was directed specifically to leftist organizations, leftist NGOs. Trump's going to gut that, and that's going to change, who gets paid and how they get paid and what kinds of programs are going to be implemented. And we're not going to see the same type of NGOs out there promoting illegal immigration. We're not going to see these crazy expenditures on condoms for Hamas and the Taliban. I mean, it was an amazing revelation when they rolled out what we were spending money on around the world.
Well, it's still coming too.
Yeah.
It's still going to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, we haven't even started. I mean, they cherry picked the U.S. aid. And when they get to places like defense and education and you name the department, they're going to be rolling out, if not corruption, at least they're going to be rolling out expenditures that nobody had knew were being made and nobody approved of. So it's going to be fun. I mean, the next 4 years, we could be doing this 4 years from now and looking back and smiling.
I hope so. I know we have a long road ahead of us. Trump is going to be in court as always. These judges are already trying to stop him right now. I think that we have to be patient. I'm just glad that I'm now able to see an administration that is transparent. And when I watch their daily news briefings, we're getting information that we haven't gotten in the last 4 years.
Right. Well, thank you for being our guest today. Thank you for, telling us what you have seen and saw down at the border. I look forward to having you back when you make your next trip down to the border because, frankly, it would be really interesting to see what type of changes, the contrast between the way it was being administered a year ago or 2 or 3 years ago, and what has changed and how the Border Patrol is now functioning down at the border and who's coming across. I can't wait to hear about that.
Stephen Colby will be one of the first to know. Always.
Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of the In Defense of Freedom. We hope that you found our discussions insightful and thought-provoking. Your support is critical to helping us continue to bring this valuable content. Please consider subscribing to our podcast and sharing it with your friends and family. We also encourage you to support the California Constitutional Rights Foundation, an organization dedicated to safeguarding constitutional rights for all Californians. Visit our website at www.cacrf.org to learn more about our important work and how you can contribute. Together we can make a difference in defending freedom and upholding justice. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you in our next episode.
Bye.
Thank you.
Great job, guys.